Gaura Premananda Haribol. All glories to all the Sama devotees, Hare Kṛṣṇa. All glories to all the Sama devotees, Hare Kṛṣṇa. All glories to all the Sama devotees, Hare Kṛṣṇa. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I thank you for coming. Today we're studying from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 3, Chapter 28, Text 39. And the word I picked out today is pratibuddha. Can you guess what that means? Pratibuddha. It's, in the translation, word for word, it's described as, Prabhupada describes it, how does he describe it here? It says the Kṛṣṇa conscious position of that of pratibuddha, which means pure consciousness, or self-realized, or someone who's awake. So this is what we're going to do, the understanding of the yogi and his thought process, the pratibuddha, the yogi. That's what we're going to discuss here today. So let's get right into the verse. Yathā putrāc vittāc pṛthaṅ martyaḥ pratīyate ātmatvenābhimatād deha-ādeḥ puruṣas tathā yathā putrāc vittāc pṛthaṅ martyaḥ pratīyate ātmatvenābhimatād dehādeḥ puruṣas tathā yathā putrāc vittāc pṛthaṅ martyaḥ pratīyate ātmatvenābhimatād dehādeḥ puruṣas tathā. Yathā putrāc vittāc ātmatvenābhimatād yathā. Vaishnavis. Yathā putrāc vittāc pṛthaṅ martyaḥ pratīyate ātmatvena abhimatāt dehādeḥ puruṣas tathā Yathā putrāc ca vittāc ca. Ātmatvenābhimatād. Ātmatvenābhimatād. Deha-ādeḥ puruṣas tathā. Yathā, as putrāt, from a son, ca, and vittāc, from wealth, ca, also, pṛthak, differently, martyaḥ, a mortal man, pratīyate, is understood, even, ātmatvena, by nature, abhimatāt, for which one has affection, dehādeḥ, from his material body, senses, and mind. Puruṣaḥ, the liberated soul. Tathā, similarly. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because of great affection for family and wealth, one accepts a son and some money as his own. And due to affection for the material body, one thinks that it is his. But actually, as one can understand that his family and wealth are different from him, the liberated soul can understand that he and his body are not the same. Purport. The status of real knowledge is explained in this verse. There are many children, but we accept some children as our sons and daughters because of our affection for them, although we know very well that these children are different from us. Similarly, because of great affection for money, we accept some amount of wealth in the bank as ours. In the same way, we claim that the body is ours because of affection for it. I say that it is my body. I then extend that possessive concept to say, it is my hand, my leg. And further, it is my bank balance, my son, my daughter. But actually, I know that the son and the money are separate from me. It is the same with the body. I am separate from my body. It is a question of understanding, and the proper understanding is called pratibuddha. By obtaining knowledge in devotional service or Kṛṣṇa consciousness, one has become a liberated soul. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshushanmanitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Kṛṣṇa Staya Bhutale Shrimati Jai Pṛthak Swaminiti Namane Namacharya Pradayane Nityakripa Padayane Gorakate Damadara Nagar Brahmatarane. Namo Vishnupadaya Kṛṣṇa Staya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirasesa Sunyavadi Paschatade Stane Vanchakalpa Tubhyascha Kripasindu Vivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, let's do the translation again. Because of great affection for family and wealth, one accepts a son and some money as his own. And due to affection for the material body, one thinks that it is his. But actually, as one can understand that his family and wealth are different from him, the liberated soul can understand that he and his body are not the same. Wow, I'm different from my body. So in this purport here, Srila Prabhupada says at the end, where he uses that word I like there, it is a question of understanding, and the proper understanding is called pratibuddha. That's by obtaining knowledge in devotional service or Kṛṣṇa consciousness, we can become a liberated soul. So then I show this picture of the liberated soul, or a devotee. So it could be anybody, anyone, any caste, any creed, any color. So as Prabhupada says, just a question of understanding, getting the proper understanding. In the 6th canto, there's a nice verse, 6:16, 15. And this word comes up again, pratibuddha. And it's just used in pratibuddha atma. And it means being fully aware of spiritual knowledge. And this is the translation. Thus enlightened by the instructions of the Brahmanas, Angira and Narada, King Chitraketu became fully aware of spiritual knowledge. As an elephant becomes free from a muddy reservoir of water, King Chitraketu came out of the dark well of family life. So that relates a lot to our verse today. How it's by the instructions of the Brahmanas. So we have to get that. So other places it's described, this word pratibuddha, as awakened, one who's enlightened in the supreme reality. And there's another verse from the 11th canto I'd like to read. The material body certainly moves under the control of the supreme destiny, and therefore must continue to live along with the senses and vital air as long as one's karma is in effect. Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, that's all I have. It'll be slow. I know, sorry. I'm almost done here. Forgive me. So, however, the wake... You don't like that, yogi. A self-realized soul... Don't be prejudiced now. So, yeah. Anyway, let me just finish. A self-realized soul, however, who is awakened to the absolute reality and who is thus highly situated in the perfect stage of yoga will never again surrender to the material body and its manifold manifestations, knowing it to be like a body visualized in a dream. So that's just a body visualized in a dream. Don't get repelled or attracted to it. Okay, so here's the purport. Srila Prabhupada really brings this out nicely here, just a short paragraph. Although Lord Kṛṣṇa recommended in the previous verse that a self-realized soul not give attention to the body, it is clear from the Lord's statement here that one should not foolishly starve or injure the body, but should patiently wait until the chain of one's previous fruited work has completely exhausted itself. At that time, the body will automatically die according to destiny. The following doubt may then arise. If a Kṛṣṇa conscious person pays proper attention to the maintenance of the body, is there danger of again becoming attached to it? Lord Kṛṣṇa here states that one who is highly elevated in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, having understood Lord Kṛṣṇa to be the actual vastu, or reality, never again surrenders to the illusory identification with the material body, which is just like the body seen in a dream. So that's it. So it's interesting, Srila Prabhupada mentioned, a devotee wrote to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, you're very ill now, and I would very much like to change my youth. I would like to switch my youth to you, and I would like to take your old age. And Prabhupada wrote back and said, actually, you will show your love to me by how you cooperate together with one another. So the biggest thing is not to give up your body, but to give up your false ego, that I am this body. So this is the whole point. So this vastu, this substance of reality, this is Kṛṣṇa. He's the unlimited ocean of wonderful qualities. So just like this image, we're either attracted or repelled. So this is the body. And this is what we're like. We like certain bodies, we hate certain bodies, and like that. So we have to understand we're not the body. So because we're at the last part of the chapter here, like to do a quick review like I like to. This is the Kapila's instructions on the execution of devotional service. And in the first 12, we learned about the limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga. It talks about the different yamas and niyamas and all the way to samadhi. And then in verses 13 to 18, it describes the Lord's form, performing dharana. So there it shows his beauty of his face, his eyes, his bodily features, and his ornaments. And then in the next verses, it talks about meditation on the different individual limbs of the Lord, starting with his lotus feet and ending with his beautiful laughter. So we're seeing more and more how Kṛṣṇa, he is the object of meditation. He is a person, a beautiful person. And then now in 34, 38, liberation of the yogi. And this talks about his state of mind, how he's detached from everything material and his achievements of his real identity. And then where we are now, 39, we're starting this verse to the end of the chapter. It's the thought process of the yogi. And here, it'll talk about how he should see the supersoul in all beings, and all beings in the supersoul. So this is the point. So, as you know, these are inspired from the Bhagavata Subodhini by Gauranga Darshan Das. So this particular verse 39, it's significant because it provides an analogy to explain how a liberated soul relates to their material body and their possessions. And it clarifies the concept of detachment and real knowledge, which is that pratibuddha. It's devotional service or Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So this is how it's significant here, this particular verse 39. So the analogy of affection and ownership. So the text explains that just as one accepts a son or wealth as theirs because of affection, one also identifies with the material body in the same way. But actually, the son, the wealth, and the body are actually separate from your true self. And then it talks about real knowledge, pratibuddha. This verse emphasized that the key to liberation is proper understanding, or this pratibuddha. And this understanding involves recognizing that our true identity is separate from the material body and its existences and its extensions. So if we obtain knowledge of devotional service or Kṛṣṇa consciousness, then we could achieve this understanding and become a liberated soul also. And then it's showing us about detachment and liberation. And it's showing us the process of detachment from this material identification. It's actually crucial for our liberation. And it reinforces the broader theme of the chapter, which is to achieve self-realization and freedom from these material designations. So this is through the yoga we discussed, through our devotional service, the yogi's ability to meditate on the Supreme Person, and then to differentiate himself between his material body. So that's the thought process of the yogi. And so the connection to the yogi's thought process is that this text 39 relates to the whole process of 39 to 44 because it's emphasizing detaching from material possessions and relationships. And it reinforces the understanding that affection for family, wealth, and the material body leads us to misidentification. And the yogi must overcome to achieve self-realization. So this is all throughout the chapter. It involves understanding this nature of happiness and distress and realizing the role of the mind, how it can perpetuate our material existence or can actually help to liberate us. So the whole chapter basically gives us that idea of how to overcome Maya through this self-realization. Because the spell of Maya is very difficult to overcome. And the yogi's thought process, it has to really be emphasized that we have to understand our true position as part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. And then the yogi is able to conquer Maya, and he remains in that state of self-realization. So I'd like to go into the different analogies that we just discussed this section here. And this is the analogy that's described in this particular verse, a point about detachment. It's showing how affection leads to false sense of ownership and identification with things that are separate from the true self, such as our family, wealth, a material body. So I'll break this down into a couple sections here where it's showing 3 points: that we have to recognize the separate nature of possessions, understand that the family, the wealth, the material body are distinct from the true self. Just as we see the jewelry that the people are wearing, the money they may have, the father's child or the child's father, they're actually separate from themselves, you see. And then this is the cultivation of our real knowledge, is pratibuddha, is that we have to strive for this proper understanding by understanding the difference between our true identity and material attachment through this devotional service. And then we have to practice this non-attachment. Consistently remind ourselves that our possessions, our relationships, they're all temporary. They're not the core of your existence. So we could see that everyone has like a family tree, right? Material family tree, where we see our father and our grandparents, and then we have our children. But we also have a spiritual family tree also. We have our spiritual master, and it goes back through disciplic succession. And we see how throughout these different roles, they change. The son becomes the father, the daughter becomes the mother. So they're all temporary. And then we have to see how the difference in these relationships between love and attachment, or the eternal versus the temporary relationships. And our duty, perform it without false identification. So then the next analogy here is we're trying to understand the nature of the Supreme and the individual soul. So this is interesting how we understand the Parambrahma and the Jiva soul, and to comprehend the relationship and acknowledge the Supreme Soul's presence everywhere. So this is a fire analogy, and we have here the Supreme Lord. He represents the fire. We see a large fire there. And then we have the individual souls. They're like the sparks. And then the smoke is the material energy. And the wood is our material bodies. So we see the main light is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the reflected light are the sparks of the individual souls. And the smoke there is the shadow, the material energy. So this actually supports our point of understanding the nature of the Supreme and the individual soul. So the Personality of Godhead, the living entities, the material energy, they're interconnected here, but yet they're distinct. So we see the fire. So we're all parts and parcel of the fire, but we're not the fire itself. So we're the individual souls, part of Kṛṣṇa. But we have the same quality. So this helps us clarify. So just like we have the analogy of the seer and the seen. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the seer, and we're the individual soul, we're the seen, like that. So this is analogy. So it supports that point. And so we see here the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the fire, the flame, and is combined with these things, the sparks, the smoke, and the firewood. So basically, the key point here is that we're qualitatively one with Kṛṣṇa. The fire, the sparks, they're both fire. But there's quantitatively a difference, the size and the power, and yet interdependent, but yet we're distinct. So it's a very nice analogy, help us understand that. And then the next analogy we have here is this about self-realization and transcending Maya. We have to recognize the illusory nature of Maya so that we can attain our Sarup and engage in devotional service. So here we have the movie theater analogy. So we see here the screen is, actually I'm showing the movie here first, sorry. The movie here, it shows our material experience. And here the screen is actually the mind. And we see here the viewer is the soul. You're viewing this. The person, the soul, is viewing. And then we have the projector, which is like the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we could say that the screen actually represents our mind. It actually reflects the movie of our experiences in the material world. So imagine you're in this theater and the projector, the Param Brahma, is the source of the light and the images. And while the screen, the Jiva's, his mind is displaying this movie, it's reflecting it. So that screen is essential for the movie to be seen, but it's not the source of the movie itself. So this illustrates the Supreme Lord is the projector, the individual soul's mind is the screen and the material world, and our experiences are the movie being projected. So that mind is like a reflective service. It's very powerful. And what happens is that the soul is combined with the senses, the material elements, the consciousness, but the mind is that seat where the consciousness is, and it processes this sensory input, and it acts as a surface upon which we experience things. So this is the material world. It's to be likened to a movie. But actually the mind is not really ourselves. Just like because of you're thinking a thought, it doesn't mean you're that thought or the emotions. But we're experiencing these things. We're actually separate. It's just a screen reflecting reality. So it's a very nice analogy. There's a very powerful verse in the second canto. It talks about how one can actually experience the supersoul. And it gives you all the different steps on how to do that. It expands on this verse that we have today, that we're showing the distinction between the seer and the seen, like this analogy here, and how material nature of perception, the perception is shaped by the material energy, and the spiritual nature of the seer, and how we're dependent on superior intelligence, that there's a guide, there's a higher intelligence or intuition that guides our steps. So we see here that the presence of the Supersoul is very important, and he is the guide. He's given us the intelligence. So there was some very interesting information about the mind in the 11th canto, understanding the mind's power. And just to back that up here, here's a few verses from the 11th canto. It says here that all the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of any other. This verse reveals the mind's position as a master of all senses, wielding a godlike, fearsome power over our experiences. And here it also, another nice verse, it describes here, neither the demigods, my own body, the planets, my past work, nor time cause happiness and distress. Rather, it's the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. This striking statement places the mind at the center of our material existence. So it's very strong, obstinate, and it's stronger than the strongest. It's very powerful. So it actually activates the material modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So this reveals how the mind uncontrolled, it perpetuates our material existence. So this is so powerful, understanding the mind. So here we'll see the real projector. The energy, the projector is the energy of the Supreme Person. And he's projecting, just by his glance, he's projecting this material universe into creation, into existence. So this is how. So how do we practically apply this in our daily life? We could see maybe by, as described in the chapter, regular meditation, beginning from the Lord's lotus feet. And we do that every day. We see the deities, we see images in the books. So we gradually expand that to the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. We engage in devotional activities, hearing, chanting, performing service. And we practice mental discipline. We regularly monitor our thoughts, check our attachments, and we should evaluate our progress. And then we should have this course correction, that recognizing when we're deviating. Just like the plane, it said most of the time, like 80-90%, it's off course. But yet it gets to its destination. Why? Because it's constantly readjusting, recorrecting its direction. And therefore it gets that way. So we have to apply these remedial measures and maintain the spiritual focus. And how do we know that we're progressing? How do we have the signs? We know that we have decreased material attachments. We're increasing our spiritual awareness. And we have steady spiritual satisfaction. In other words, we become happy. And the external manifestations is that we control our senses. We have balanced behavior, natural attraction to devotional service. So we could see here the mind's power, it can be directed either toward bondage or liberation. So by understanding its nature, applying spiritual principles, protect, especially devotional service, we can transform the mind from a source of material entanglement into a tool for spiritual advancement. So we had some nice points there. So today is a special day. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit at the end. But if anybody has any comments about this, questions or reflections. Yes, Brigupati Prabhu. Yes.
You could even see how you're different from your arm if it gets amputated, or your leg gets amputated. You could see, oh, I'm different from my leg. But if you cut off your head, you can't see how you're different from your head.
Yeah.
So it seems like the analogy breaks down there.
Yeah, it's not perfect. Analogies aren't perfect to bring a spiritual point. But yeah, you can see that because you're self-realized. But some people actually don't realize that they're different from their car. If you hit them, they're going to say, "You hit me," and they're going to be very upset. Or just like your body, you think. I used to think, well, what if I lose a part of my body? Am I incomplete? Am I gone? Until you become a devotee and you realize, wow, we're actually completely separate from the body. It's so liberating, isn't it? So liberating. Yeah. Thank you. It's a good point. Any other points? Yes. Dear Lalita Prabhu.
I was thinking about this point. Yes, we are separate from the body, but this body is meant to be engaged in serving Kṛṣṇa. So we have to take care of it.
Exactly.
We cannot neglect it.
Yes, that's a point I made also. That until the body is dropped, we should take care of it, and then it'll die naturally. But during that time, we should engage in devotional service and practice this process. Yes. Okay, so you want to see the special day. Oh, did you have a comment? Go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So you said we are separate from the body and family and wealth, right? But we are also separate from the mind, right?
Yes.
So when wealth is gone, we can identify, when family is gone or when body is gone, we can actually see we are different from them, but how we see we are different from the mind, like anartha stored in the mind. How I can identify that?
Yeah, that's why analogies are very important. That's why I brought this analogy of the film. The screen is like the mind. So we see these pictures going on before us in the mind, but we identify with them, we think they're real. But it's actually like a movie going on, and it's being projected from Kṛṣṇa through his glance in the mature world to fulfill our innermost, deepest desires. He's created a body for us to fulfill that. And there's 8,400,000 living species that we can go through to experience that. So when we become, through this process of devotional service, we become self-realized and we understand the differences. And Archita has a comment to make, so I'll let Archita speak. He could probably explain it better.
That's why intelligence is required.
Yes.
Intelligence is above the mind. If the untrained intelligence surrenders to the mind, and therefore you can't distinguish things properly. And that's why Guru is required. Guru trains the intelligence so you can make proper distinctions.
Yeah.
I remember when I was young, my friends didn't like to go to movies with me because I was too analytical. And I would say, that's not possible. Oh, come on. Like that. They want to surrender to the movie and just get into it, and I'm analyzing, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So the mind that's trained to analyze the difference between matter and spirit and what's really going on here in this material world, what is that you're really attracted to? Is it really worth being attracted to? That kind of mind will distinguish when the mind is that kind of intelligence will distinguish when the mind is being misled. And like you say, course correction, put you back on the right course. So the intelligence has to be properly trained, otherwise you can't get out of it.
Yeah. That's nice what you said about the intelligence, how we need that intelligence to guide us. It's very important. Yes, Prabhu.
Just to add to Archita Prabhu's comment, the mind's business is just accepting and rejecting. That's all it does. Oh, well, just like sometimes people say, oh, I changed my mind. Because you're rejecting and accepting something according to your senses. You're not using intelligence. So the higher than that is to go to that level of intelligence, and that's coming from Kṛṣṇa.
Yes. Yeah, just like, can you change the picture? The mind accepts or rejects a picture. And like Archita said, it's amazing how people like to get lost in a movie, right? They like to lose themselves in a movie. And if you're like you're saying, you ruin it for them. You try to analyze it and show it's not real. But any other comments, questions? Yes, Irina.
I have a really quick comment. Yesterday I heard from Kumi, our Kumi,
yoga teacher.
The yoga teacher, Kumi. Yeah, in her yoga class, she in the end did like a little meditation, and she said, well, observe your thoughts. And then she said, well, if you can observe your thoughts, you're not your thoughts, you're not your mind. And I thought like, oh, that's so simple, and it rang a bell for me.
Exactly, that brings the point again here. We're the observer of the movie. Thank you. So I don't know if anyone wants to stay, but today is the disappearance of Sri Ramanujacharya. And this is a picture of a statue of equality. They made, for his 1000th birthday anniversary, they honored his contributions to Indian philosophy on spirituality, and he emphasized equality and inclusivity. So this is a symbolism of equality. So he actually treated all humans as equals, whether they were their caste, creed, or social status. And this statue is 216 feet tall. It's made of 5 different alloys: gold, silver, zinc, and some other metals. It's the tallest, one of the tallest, I think it's the second tallest statue in the world of someone sitting. I think the first one is Buddha. And so it's interesting, he revealed a lot of things, his education, his significance. But I have this YouTube video, this is what this is, a YouTube video, and it goes on a tour through this. And I'd like to just give like a little summary of his life that's given about him. just to give an idea, and how his life relates to our class today. So as I'll be speaking, it'll just go through the video. He's going to go through the whole tour, like as if you're going there. So, and then I'll just tell you about this great personality, Yamunacharya. So let's start it here. But if you have anything you like to do, you can, you're welcome to take off if you like or whatever. But so this is just like a couple paragraph summary. So he was born in 1017 AD. He was a revolutionary theologian. He challenged the prevailing impersonal philosophy of Sankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta. He was born in Sri Perambur, India. He studied under Yadava Prakash, but soon rejected his teacher's impersonal interpretations of scripture and also offensive interpretations he had. And despite facing opposition and even attempts on his life, he still established his own school of thought and later became the chief priest of the famous Srirangam temple under the guidance of his guru Yamunacharya. His life was marked by remarkable events, including miraculous protection during assassination attempts and his fulfillment of his guru's 3 final wishes: to protect people from impersonalism, write a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, and honor the sage Parashara. And then the second paragraph. At age 120, while worshiping the deity of Narayan at Srirangam, Ramanuja prayed to depart from the material world. Though his disciples begged him to stay, he remained for just 3 more days to give his final instructions. He advised them to serve devotees as they would their own spiritual master. Have faith in Vedic teachings, conquer lust, anger, and greed, and take shelter of God's holy names. That's the 3 instructions he left. And then finally, resting his head on the lap of Govinda and fixing his mind in spiritual trance, he departed for Vaikuntha. His philosophical legacy of Visishtadvaita, qualified non-dualism, transformed Indian theology thought by establishing that the Supreme Being is personal and that living entities are eternally individual parts of the Supreme, meant for devotional service. His work, including Sri Bhashya and Vedartha Sangraha, established the philosophical foundations for devotional theism in India and continue to influence Vaishnava philosophy today. So now I'd just like to end with showing how his living example, how it relates to our class today. So actually his living and passing is served as a perfect illustration of the principles discussed about the mind and self-realization. So we'll consider how his life demonstrates these. So one point is that he transcended false identification. So just see how we discussed how the mind creates false identification with possessions, body, and relationships. Ramanuja's wife showed complete freedom from these material attachments. His willingness to leave his comfortable position as a householder and take sannyas. His fearlessness in the face of death threats, showing his transcendence of bodily identification. And 2, control of the mind. We studied how the mind can be either for our greatest enemy or friend. Ramanuja demonstrated perfect mind control. His calm response to Yadava Prakash's attacks. His steady focus on serving the Supreme despite all obstacles. His peaceful departure showing complete mastery over the mind until his final moment. And then the 3rd, his practical application. He didn't just theorize about controlling the mind and transcending false ego. He lived it. His final instructions emphasize the practical aspects we discussed. Association with devotees, controlling lust, anger, and greed, taking shelter of the Lord's names, and our service attitude. So this is, we have this Srimad Yamunacharya, his life. So his life is a perfect summary of our entire discussion. It focused on service to devotees, following spiritual authority, controlling the senses, taking shelter of the Lord's names, And in these instructions, we found a practical means to transform the mind from an instrument of bondage to a tool for liberation in its final days. So a special gift for everybody who stayed late. I put together a takeaway today, a class summary and a practical guide, and some checkpoints you can do and some things you could follow. So if anybody would like, you could take one. There's a couple there actually, they're stuck together. So, Jai Hare Krishna. Jai. Oh, you did? Oh, yeah? Actually, there's a statue inside there. It's pure gold, right? Inside there's a little statue of him. It's made out of gold. Yeah, it's amazing. That's pretty nice. Here you go, Prabhu, if you want. Yeah. Jai. Oh, you did? My email?
Yeah.
Okay. Text? What's up? Okay. You told me which ones?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll order them for you. Okay. And we'll have them ready for you. Thank you.